Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Parade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Okay, so I'm hoping that all of you have read the recap and everybody knows where we are, so I can just pick up where we left off in Mahabharata. And it's very, very touching to get to the end of Mahabharata. Where we left off last year was in this Anushasana Parva, where Bhishmacharya is on his bed of arrows. And he's on his bed of arrows, and Yudhishthira, after having heard everything in the Shanti Parva, all the dharmas of what it takes to be a king, what kind of ruler should he be, how should his palace be kept, who should he appoint as ministers. He heard everything and he said, "Oh, please, Bhishma, tell me what is the highest dharma. What is that meditating or contemplating upon one is free from all births?" And Bhishma says, it is the name of the Lord. It is Bhagavan Vishnu. Vishwam Vishnur Vashatkaru. And thus he gives the whole Vishnu Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Bhagavan Vishnu, so that Yudhishthira can meditate upon that. And that is one other gem of Mahabharata, in addition to the many, many gems that we have seen. And with this, Bhishma, who has Ichcha Mrityu, that means he can decide when he's going to pass away, he sees that the sun is making its way towards the north, Uttarayan, which will happen in a few days. And he leaves his body, and there's fragrant air and showers of flowers, and everybody is just in awe of this warrior Bhishma. And after that, Yudhishthira once again, although he was very full with the knowledge that Bhishma gave him, once again he was feeling gloomy that somebody like that has left his heart. Someone has left him. And so we move now to the next Parva of Mahabharata. So I'm just going to share with you where we are at, so that way we're all on the same page in case anybody forgot. We are here. So we have seen now
we have seen 13 Parvas. Okay, so 6, 12, 13. The last where we left off was Anushasana Parva. Today we will start from what we call Ashvamedha Parva. Okay, so the 14th one. What happens in this Ashvamedha Parva is that now, everything's back. Kingdom is being ruled. Everyone's there. Bhagavan Krishna and Arjuna are there sporting in the grounds and they're reminiscing on their days together. And Arjuna asks Lord Krishna a question. He says, Bhagavan Krishna, in the Mahabharata war, you had given me that Bhagavad Gita. I'm afraid I don't remember the entirety of it. And can you please give it to me again? And Bhagavan Krishna says, I cannot give you again the whole Gita. That knowledge is priceless. It just came from me. I cannot give you the whole thing again. But I will give you what is called Anugita. Anugita means a shorter version of the Gita. I will give to you. So it is in this Ashvamedha Parva that Bhagavan Krishna gives Arjuna a concise version about the Bhagavad Gita, which speaks the same truth that the Gita does. And so this is another gem of Mahabharata that is yet to be explored. Now, why is this called Ashvamedha Parva? It's because here, in this place, Narad Rishi was noticing Yudhishthira and trying to see what can get this king back up. What can make him rise again? What can make him rule again with all that valor? And he said, why don't you all perform an Ashvamedha Yaga? It's a sacrifice, a horse sacrifice. Why don't you all perform that? And to perform that, you're going to need a lot of wealth. So you have to go up to the Himalayas, up to the mountains, and you have to recover this treasure of wealth of the Maruts. So why don't you do that? And this will bring back the kingdom. And he thought this will also keep the Pandavas busy and they'll get back into the spirit of ruling. So everybody was very, very happy with this suggestion. And before this whole suggestion of Narada, Bhagavan Krishna, he says, everything is over now. I'm going to go back to Dwaraka. So Bhagavan Krishna leaves, Narada arrives, and this whole preparation for Ashvamedha Yaga is happening. So again, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva, even Yudhishthira were so happy to get into this spirit of building a kingdom. Then what happens is they sent invitations to all of the kings of the land. This is going to happen. And they want to call Bhagavan Krishna back. So they left Hastinapur. They went up to the mountains. They appointed Yuyutsu. They said, Yuyutsu, you take care of everything. We will go bring back all the wealth and we will have the yaga. Meanwhile, call everybody. Call everyone to attend. Get the preparations ready. And when we come back, we will do it. Now what happens is, Bhagavan Krishna, so he left, now he comes back to Hastinapur. And when he comes back to Hastinapur, a very important event takes place. Uttara was pregnant. Remember, Uttara was the wife of Abhimanyu. And she was pregnant. And she was about to deliver the baby. And so Kunti Devi, Draupadi, everybody, Subhadra, everybody was there. And Uttara was going to give birth to this baby. Now they all knew that this baby was going to be lifeless because of Ashwatthama's astra. Remember, he threw that astra and he said, may the world be Pandavaless. And the rishi said, don't do that. How can you do that? And he couldn't recall that astra. So he said, may no more Pandavas be born. Means this astra was for Uttara's newborn. And so it happened that Uttara gave birth and the child was still. It was lifeless. It didn't move. And she cried and she wailed and she said, how can you come into this world like this, not even seeing your mother, not even seeing your grandparents? How can you come into this world like this? And just then, Bhagavan Krishna came in to the chambers of Uttara and he said, don't worry, I will bring life into that child. And he took this lifeless child in his hands, and as though all his energy was gone into this child, every single thing that Bhagavan Krishna had, as though it went into this child. And after a few moments, this child started crying, started weeping. And everyone was so incredibly happy that this child now was born, was alive. There is a Pandava. Everyone was overjoyed. And this child's name was Parikshit. Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu. And this signifies the strength of the Guru Shishya Parampara. This immortal Guru Shishya Parampara, nobody can stop. The eternal knowledge that flows from the Guru to the Shishya becomes the Guru to the Shishya. Nobody can stop it. And even if God has to come in between to continue, he will continue it. And thus this Mahabharata, which is thousands of years old, is still told today because of this lineage that is extremely precious. So Yudhishthira comes back and is overjoyed now that he has his grandson and he has someone there to continue the lineage, and all the Pandavas are so happy with this birth of Parikshit. You know, if there's one thing that can make everything happy, everything okay, in the midst of all of this chaos, it's the birth of a child. When you look at a child, you forget the world. It's like when you look at God, you forget the world. When you look at a child also, you forget the world. And so the Pandavas performed their Ashvamedha Yaga. And mind you, before Yudhishthira performed that Rajasuya Yaga, none of those people were there. All of them passed away. So it was all their children and their nephews who attended this Ashvamedha Yaga. So the Pandavas, once again, they ruled their kingdom well. And this is the Ashvamedha Parva. Now we move on to Ashrama Vasika Parva. What happens is they are ruling for about 15 years. And as I told you, Yudhishthira made sure that nobody spoke ill about Dhritarashtra and Gandhari and even Duryodhana. And he treated them as his own parents. And he told Dhritarashtra, you are king. I am just acting on your behalf. And actually, in this time, Dhritarashtra enjoyed all the privileges of having sons. Before, he didn't really enjoy those privileges of people serving him the way Yudhishthira served him. None of his Kauravas even served him that way. And so Dhritarashtra, things that he never experienced before, he experienced with Yudhishthira. And it was made very clear that they were ruling under Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Finally, Dhritarashtra, one day, after 15 years of that rulership, he comes to Yudhishthira and he says, and he had gone weak, he became very thin. And he said, Yudhishthira, I want to ask your permission. And Yudhishthira says, how can you ask permission from me? And Dhritarashtra says, I want to go to the forest. I want to go and live in the forest. I want to give up now all of this. You are taking care of the kingdom and I just want to be on my own. And he said, actually, I did not tell you. Nobody knew. But Gandhari and I have been living the life of tapasvi. Means they have been sleeping on the floor, eating very little, just to performing austerities, and he says, I want to go to the forest. And Yudhishthira says, how can you leave me now? How can you go? He says, no, I must go. This is a part of life. I have done so many wrong things in my life. And Dhritarashtra, it goes through the whole account of what he's done wrong. He said, I did not listen to my brother Vidura. I put you all through so much. I did not share the wealth of the kingdom with you. I did not, because of my attachment to Duryodhana, I could not stop him. There's so many things that I want to repent for, and it's time that I go and perform austerities in the forest. And Yudhishthira said, okay, this is what you want. And Gandhari said, I'm also going to go. I'm going to go with him. I'm going to follow him. And Vidura said, I'm also going to go. And Sanjaya said, me also. So all of them also, they all wanted to go to the forest to perform austerities. So now the whole of Hastinapur was a little bit sad because they had grown to love Dhritarashtra. He had changed. And so Dhritarashtra slowly walking out, and Gandhari and Sanjaya and Vidura, they're all walking out. And so what happens is Kunti Devi looks at all of them. They were all following them to a certain point. She looks at her son and she says, I'm also going to go for tapas. And they were like, what? How can you leave us? It was your words that kept us strong all along. In this portion, Kunti Devi says, I know that I have kept your courage alive whenever we had hard times, and I know I have kept you together. I know I have done my duty as a mother, and now it is finished. I also need to repent because I've kept my first son's birth a secret. I also need to go perform austerities, and I need to go to the forest. They didn't want to leave her. They were crying, and she said, I must also go. And so she also joins them. And so now they make their way to the forest. And this is a very beautiful thing in our Hindu dharma. When people get to a certain age, at vanaprastha age, they prepare to die. It's a thing that we do. We prepare to die because we know we're not going to live forever. So instead of dyeing the hair and going for Botox and all of these things, people in vanaprastha, when they're getting older, they know that it's time for them to repent for whatever wrongdoings they've done. They know it's time to close their accounts. They're not trying to hold on to their positions anymore, or to their power, or to their money. They give and they wrap it up, because what can you bring in death? When death comes, what can you bring with you? None of these. You can only bring your dharma, your merit, or your adharma or demerit. And therefore, especially at vanaprastha age, the focus is on gaining punya, on gaining more merit. So either this life will be my last life, or may I at least go to a higher realm than this life, than this birth. And so Dhritarashtra knew all of this, and before he left, he gave advice to Yudhishthira. He cleaned up everything, he cleared all his records, and he let everything go. And so did Gandhari, so did Kunti Devi. They let everything go because they were preparing to die. They were preparing to leave this world. And they did that in a very peaceful way. In our culture, there is no fear of death. There is preparing for death. There is no, how am I going to die? Oh no, I'm going to die. Oh no, this day is going to come. The attitude is, I am going to die, but let me go peacefully. Let me go clearing all my accounts. Let me go mending, whatever wrong I've done, let me seek forgiveness. Let me go with a clean slate. And let me go performing austerities or doing service and taking the name of God. And this is a very holy stage in our culture. And this is what they did. This is our tradition. And so that's why it's called Ashrama Vasika Parva, because they are living in that ashrama. Now you're going to say, but these days and ages, we don't have a forest we can go to. That is true, but we can make our homes a forest. Now we can make it simple, we can make it neat, we can make it just full of austerity, purity, and simplicity. And so this is where they went. And it is said that they performed such austere tapas, and back in the kingdom, after they left, a few months passed, some time passed, and the Pandavas were feeling miserable because they said they gained Parikshit was now growing, but they had lost their mother. And they felt that they have lost their father and their mother, their uncle, they have lost everybody. So they wanted to visit now. They wanted to visit now. Just like, when you leave your kids, they'll want to go after you and visit you. Say, how's mom? How's dad? No? So they wanted to go visit their parents. So they went to the forest and they saw the condition of their parents, and they said whoever wanted to come can come. So whole band, Bharat Bhaja, everybody went, the whole big thing went. And they saw, they were all thin, they were all lean, the Pandavas couldn't take it that Kunti Devi was like this, so thin, so performing so much austerity. And they inquired about their health, and they were living on fruits, on roots, very, very simple life. And they were dressed in tree barks, very simple. And Yudhishthira asked, where is Vidura? Because see, Sanjaya and Vidura, even if there's no repentance, even if there's no need to repent, or even if there's no wrongdoing, still there's so much merit one can gain from austerity. And so Vidura and Sanjaya chose to do that. And so Yudhishthira asks for Vidura. And, Dhritarashtra said, listen, Vidura is living on air. All he's doing is living on air. And so Yudhishthira looks in the forest and he sees somebody with matted locks and his body is like a skeleton already. And he realizes it's Vidura. And he looks into Vidura's eyes. And Vidura looks into his eyes. And Vidura doesn't say anything, but as though Vidura goes into samadhi. He looks into Yudhishthira's eyes. And as he does that, the whole strength, all of the wisdom of Vidura, they go into Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira felt himself get stronger, get wiser. He felt himself expand. And after this whole experience, he saw Vidura's body there, lifeless. And he wanted to take the body and cremate it or do something. And a voice from heavens came and said, Vidura has entered into you. So your body is one with his. There's no need to cremate it. So Yudhishthira was just stunned. How Vidura had entered into his body, and he told Dhritarashtra about it. And so Yudhishthira, the Pandavas, they all stayed with their parents. For some time. And Vedavyasa goes to visit them. Now Vedavyasa told Dhritarashtra, you've performed so much tapas. Is there something that I can do for you? And Dhritarashtra said, yes, in fact, we're all longing. No matter how much time has passed, no matter how good I've been treated by the Pandavas, I still think about my sons. Gandhari longs to see her sons. I know Kunti Devi, she longs to see Karna. Everybody longed to see their family, their relatives. Please help us, and at least one time, let us see them. Let us see all of those whom we have lost that day of the battle. So Vedavyasa says, okay, with my tapas, we can do that. Let's go by the river, and in the night, I will call upon all those who have died to come back to life. And so they went by the river. Everybody went by the river. And they were waiting just for the night to come. Because they wanted to see everyone. Yudhishthira was aching to see Karna. Draupadi was aching to see her 5 sons who she's lost. Subhadra was aching to see Abhimanyu. Everyone was aching to see all of the people they've lost in the war. And the night time comes, and Vedavyasa enters into the river, and he does his tapasya, and out of the river comes thousands of people from the war, thousands of people. The Kauravas, all the people from the Pandavas side, everyone that was part of the war, all of the ladies whose husbands died in the war, they had come. So they had seen their husbands. And everyone was in that attire that they were in war. Everyone was so happy, joyous, pleasant with each other. There was no hatred, there was no vengeance, there was no bitterness. Everyone was just so united together, and it was a grand sight to see how Kunti Devi finally united with Karna, and the Pandavas met their brother as their brother, and Draupadi met her 5 sons, and Subhadra hugged her Abhimanyu, and Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they saw. Dhritarashtra was given that power of sight just for those moments by Vedavyasa, and he saw his sons and he embraced them. And all of the ladies, they met their husbands, and they were just so incredibly happy. And they spent some time together, talking, laughing, being with each other. And after some time, when it was getting too late, Vedavyasa said, now I'll have to let everybody go back into their proper realms. And he told all of the ladies who've lost their husbands, they said, if you want to join your husbands in those higher realms, you can go now. And they went and they joined their husbands in those higher realms. And with the flicker of an eye, all of those people went back into the river. And the Pandavas and Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Kunti Devi, Vidura, everybody, not Vidura, Sanjaya, everybody was so overwhelmed. And this is a very beautiful portion, because we think that when people die, they're miserable, they're sad. But no, they go to the proper realms. They go where they're supposed to go according to their karma. And that was clearly seen by all of those people who came. When they went back into the respective lokas, the Pandavas understood that everybody had gone to where they deserved to go, and that everybody was just playing their part. Everyone in the whole Mahabharata war was playing the part that they needed to play. It's very much like in a movie. You will see this Dracula biting somebody's neck, and we will be like, what's happening? But behind the scenes, that the person whose neck's being bitten is like, good job. Now you move a little bit more here. And the Dracula says, yeah, now you scream a little louder. Isn't it? Behind the scenes, everybody knows it's just a part that they're playing. It's just a game that they're playing. In the movie, it seems like people are crying and weeping and joking. But behind the scenes, they knew it was a role. And so this whole thing showed it to them. And with this experience, they felt complete. Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, Sanjaya, they felt complete. And even the Pandavas felt complete. And now they were wanting to go back to their austerity. And so Dhritarashtra says, Yudhishthira, you've been here now for a month. Now you must go. Now you must leave me because we want to go deeper into our austerities. And Yudhishthira says, I want to also do austerities. Let somebody else be king, They said, no, no, no. You are meant to be king. You have to rule the kingdom. Therefore, you all go and you leave us and we will perform our austerities nicely. And so reluctantly, the Pandavas left, the four of them, Kunti Devi, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Sanjaya, they left them and they went back to the kingdom. And so now they began to rule the kingdom as per Dhritarashtra had advised them. And a few years later, Narad Rishi came. Now Yudhishthira knew that whenever Narad Rishi comes, something happens. So Yudhishthira said, welcome, Rishi, Pranam. Please tell us what can we do for you? And Narad Rishi says, there's something that I need to tell you. Your father and your two mothers are no more. They were burned in a forest fire. After you left, Dhritarashtra did intense tapasya that he stopped eating altogether. He lived on air and he didn't even speak. Gandhari was just living on water. Kunti Devi ate very, very little, and so did Sanjaya. And one day, they were all performing their austerities, and because they had become emaciated, they could barely move, could barely get up and rise. There was a forest fire, and therefore they didn't even make an effort to escape. Dhritarashtra told Sanjaya to leave, to go and escape. And Sanjaya reluctantly did that. And that's how I know this story. And they left themselves here and they were burnt in that forest fire. Again, the Pandavas were just distraught. How, especially Kunti Devi, how could she be burnt with such punya that the sons were doing? How could she be burnt in this fire? They couldn't understand. And Narad Rishi says, it's the fire of their own tapas. This is what they wanted. They were ready to let go of their lives. And everybody understood that. And so now they were gone and they had passed away. And this is where Ashrama Vasika Parva, it ends. So now once again, they're made to rule the kingdom. And it's just them. It's just the five of them. And Yudhishthira says, if there's anything that's keeping me going, it's just Bhagavan Krishna. It's only Bhagavan Krishna. I've lost everything. There's nothing else that I want in this world. I'm just living for merit. I just want punya so that I go to higher realms. I don't want any of this kingship or money. I'm over it. He had gotten so much vairagya, so much dispassion, because he had seen so much death. And he said, if there's anything that's making me live, it is just Lord Krishna. So now we come to Bhagavan Krishna, which we see in Mausala Parva, the next Parva. Mausala Parva is called as such. Musala means club, club, like a club. Mausala means relating to clubs. It was 36 years after the Mahabharata war. And now we pause for a while to put the Pandavas aside and we come to Bhagavan Krishna in Dwaraka. 36 years passed and there were really bad omens in Dwaraka. That there was foul smell, the birds didn't stop chirping, different animals were giving birth to different animals, people were fighting, people were screaming, people were yelling. There was just these really bad omens in Dwaraka. And Lord Krishna knew what was happening. What was happening was the curse of Gandhari. One day, the Yadavas, the Vrishnis, they were playing around, and one of them pretended to be pregnant. And there were some rishis there, and they were playing a joke on the rishis and saying, "Oh, this man is pregnant. This person's pregnant. What will they have? A girl or a boy?" They were just playing a joke, and the rishis said, "This person will give birth to an iron club." An iron club. They cursed this person because they were joking with the rishis. And the rishis also knew that this is part of the divine plan. And so, in fact, the next day, that person who was pregnant gave birth to an iron club. And the rishi said, "This will be the cause of all of your death and the destruction of all the Yadavas." And so the minute they got that iron club, the king said, "Crush it into powder, put it in the ocean so that it doesn't affect us." And so they put it into the ocean. They crushed it into powder, put it into the ocean. Little did they know that the leaves and the trees that were growing with that water, it was still there. It was still part of it. The remnants were still there. And so Bhagavan Krishna said, "This is, lots of negativities happening now. Let us take a Tirtha Yatra. We will go to Prabhasa Kshetra." So all of them packed goods, packed food, packed everything, and they went to this Prabhasa Kshetra. And he said, "Let us do some Tirtha Yatra. Let us go for Punya." And it so happened in this Prabhasa Kshetra, one night there was a drunken brawl. This Satyaki, who was on the side of the Pandavas, got so mad at Kritavarma. Kritavarma was the one who sided with the Kauravas, who helped Ashwatthama in this setting the Pandava camp onto fire and destroying the Pandavas. He got so mad. He said, "What kind of warrior are you to destroy people who are sleeping, to set fire to them?" And he cut off his head. And when he did that, a whole fight started happening. And people started plucking those leaves that were from that iron powder, and they started using that as weapons to hurt each other. And brothers were harming brothers, sons were harming fathers. Bhagavan Krishna's sons were also there. Everyone was harming each other. Bhagavan Krishna had to witness all of this, and he knew it was the curse of Gandhari, and he knew that this is how the Yadava clan had to go. And before they knew it, everyone destroyed everyone. The whole Yadava clan, thousands and thousands of people, they destroyed each other. And the only three people left were Bhagavan Krishna, Balarama, and Daruka. And Krishna tells Daruka, "Call Arjuna, bring him here, because there are all of those." Bhagavan Krishna had 16,000 wives. There are all of those people who take shelter in me. Arjuna has to take care of them, because Dwaraka, this whole entire ocean, this whole entire land will sink after I go. And so what happened was Daruka left, and Lord Krishna went to Balarama, and Balarama was sitting in his yogic posture, and from his tongue emerged a white serpent, that Sheshnag, because Balarama was that Sheshnag who was taken avatar to come here. And Bhagavan Krishna knew that Balarama would now merge back into the Milky Ocean. And he saw that Balarama was now making his departure. Bhagavan Krishna said, "I also have to make my departure." He went to Vasudeva, his father, and he said, "Father, now I must also go. Balarama has left. I must also go. Arjuna will be coming here. Tell him to take care of everybody, to give them refuge, and I will make my way." And he does pronounce to his father. And Lord Krishna says, "Now I have to go. And he remembered that Durvasa Rishi had given him a curse. Once, Bhagavan Krishna had served Durvasa Rishi. And Durvasa Rishi said, okay, now you spread this payasam or this rice pudding all over my body. So Bhagavan Krishna spread it all on Durvasa Rishi's body. And Durvasa Rishi blessed him that since you spread it all over my body, your whole body will be invulnerable. Nobody can harm you. But you did not spread in the soles of my feet. Therefore, the soles of your feet will be sensitive. You can be harmed there. So Bhagavan Krishna says, perfect, that's how I'll go. Because after all, I have taken an avatar of a being, so I also have to pass away. So Bhagavan Krishna, with his yogic power, lies down and he exposes the sole of his feet. And now you know he wears a yellow garment, pitambara. And the soles of his feet, from far, a hunter saw it and said, it looks like a deer. It looks like a deer. And so that hunter shot the soles of the feet of Bhagavan Krishna. And with that, Bhagavan Krishna went back to his abode as Narayana. That hunter was so grieved, so grieved, so grieved. Before Bhagavan Krishna left, he said, don't worry, I had to leave, I had to go. And Bhagavan Krishna went into his abode. Now we go back to Arjuna. Arjuna got the news from Daruka and he ran like anything. He took his Gandiva, took everything with him. He went to Dwaraka and he went and he saw Balarama and Bhagavan Krishna's bodies. And he was so sad. And he went to see Vasudeva. And Vasudeva said, now you take everybody with you and I'm also going. And Vasudeva, he left his body through his yogic power, and Arjuna took all of these thousands of people, was going to take them back to Hastinapur. But while he was taking them back to Hastinapur, a bunch of robbers came to loot from them because they were carrying things with them. And Arjuna said, not to worry, I can handle it. And he got his Gandiva, but he couldn't even string his Gandiva. His arrows it didn't even hit the mark. And they were running out and he just was lifeless. He wasn't as strong as before. And he said, I don't understand what's happening. And because of this, so many of those ladies were captured by those robbers. And only a handful of them he brought back to Hastinapur. And he went to Vedavyasji. He said, I don't know what's wrong, what's happening to me. And he said, now Bhagavan Krishna has left. Everything now has to get over. You also prepare yourself to leave. And so Arjuna, he goes back. He goes back to Hastinapur. And he tells Yudhishthira, this is what happened. Now we have to also make our way. We have to make our journey to the end. And Yudhishthira, they were all crying and so sad that Bhagavan Krishna had now left. Now they had really nothing to live for. What was there to live for? Nothing. And so they said, okay, now we will make our journey. Now we will pause here for a moment to see how come Arjuna couldn't shoot his arrows, couldn't string his bow. It's because everything is only possible with the grace of Bhagavan. Everything, every single thing that we have. We might think we have it. We might think we're doing everything. But when that grace leaves, there is absolutely nothing we can do. And that's what happened with Arjuna. And back in the day, people had this yogic power. Even now, very few people will have it. That they can will themselves to die. They can leave their bodies willingly. This is what Balarama did. Bhagavan Krishna put himself there. Vasudeva did this. Vidura did this. So in the day, this is how people left their bodies. They were very, very well aware of it. It wasn't very violent like now, like in a hospital bed or an attack or something like that. So this is very rare now, but this is what is seen in our custom. We now move on to the second to the last Parva. It's called Mahaprasthana Parva. Maha, the great Prasthana departure. The Pandavas now are ready to depart this world. They've lost everything. Everything is gone. And Yudhishthira, he makes Parikshit the king. He makes Parikshit king, and he, Kripacharya, who's still there, is the guru, and Yuyutsu is looking after them. And now the 5 Pandavas and Draupadi, they make their way up into the Himalayas, and they're also practicing tapasya. They're fasting, and they're clad in tree barks and very, very simple, and they want to walk up north. I just said now that place where the Pandavas ascend to heaven is there today. We can actually visit it. Hopefully when everything opens up, we can visit that. But they make their way, and so it's the 5 Pandavas, it's Draupadi, and 1 dog also goes with them. And before they make their way up north, Agni comes to them and says, now, Arjuna, it's time for you to let go of your Gandiva. You will no longer need that in the journey. So Arjuna lets go of it. And as they are walking up north, Draupadi falls down. It's the first one to fall down. And she leaves. And Bhima is just wonderstruck. How can Draupadi fall? How can she just leave her body like that? And Yudhishthira says, you see, Draupadi, she had one little flaw, is that she favored Arjuna over all of us. And that is why she had fallen down. And again, they're making up their way north. Sahadeva fell. His body fell. And Bhima said, what is this? Our Sahadeva, our brother, how can he fall? Yudhishthira said, Sahadeva was very, very wise. He had some subtle intellectual pride in him. And that's why he's fallen. And they're making up their way. And Nakula falls next. And Bhima said, why is he falling? Yudhishthira says, you remember when we left, when that game of dice was played and we left to the forest, Nakula was covering his face. It's because he's proud of his looks. He thinks that he's very, very handsome. He has that pride. And Bhima just was stunned at how everyone's falling and everyone's around him falling, but they still made their journey. And Arjuna falls. Bhima says, what's going on? How can Arjuna fall? Yudhishthira said, Arjuna also had pride. He said one day that he could beat all the Kauravas in one day. He could defeat all of them. And then he underestimated all the other heroes. So he had that pride. Then Bhima says, I'm also falling. Will you please tell me what did I do wrong? Yudhishthira says, listen, Bhima, you are always proud of your strength, of your arms, that you can defeat everybody and anybody with those arms. That pride is what's making you fall. And so everyone fell. And it was just Yudhishthira who was making his way up to the top of the mountain. He makes his way up to the top of the mountain, and it's just Yudhishthira and this dog. And Indra appears with a chariot and says, now you come with me to heaven. Yudhishthira says, I don't want to go to heaven. I want to go to where all my brothers and Draupadi are. And Indra says they are all in heaven and you can meet them. Yudhishthira says, okay, very good. But I would like to take this dog with me also, because this dog has been following me throughout. Indra says, no, you cannot take this dog. No dogs are allowed in heaven. No human body is actually allowed in heaven. But you, Yudhishthira, are very special. So you, in your human body, and only you can come to heaven like this. We cannot permit anybody else. And Yudhishthira says, no, I cannot do it. I cannot abandon this dog because this dog has taken shelter in me. And it is my dharma that whoever takes shelter in me, I must protect. I cannot let them go. I cannot abandon him. He has been devoted to me. And so Indra says, then you are going to abandon all this heavenly things because of this dog. And Yudhishthira says, yes, but I will not abandon dharma. I will not leave him. And this is what it is. And Indra was shocked. And out came from that carriage, from that vahana, Dharmaraja. Dharmaraja said, Yudhishthira, congratulations, you have passed your second test. Your first test was in Yaksha Prashna, when you could choose one of your brothers to save, and you had saved Nakula. This is your second test to see how much you really abide by dharma, and you really do. And therefore, you come now to heaven and come with this dog. Bring this dog also with you to heaven. And so Yudhishthira goes to heaven with this dog. And this was the Mahaprasthana, the great departure. Great departure, because after this, hopefully there's no coming back. Now, we enter into the last Parva of Mahabharata called Svarga Arohana. Now, in heaven, what happens? So Yudhishthira ascends to heaven. He goes to the heavenly realms. And he's waiting patiently to see his brothers, to see Draupadi. And he sees how heaven is all beautifully, glorious, majestic. And who does he see there? Duryodhana. What? How can Duryodhana be in heaven? Where are my brothers? Where is my Draupadi? Why is he sitting here and enjoying? He who has done so many wrong things, how can he be in heaven? And Yudhishthira was so upset. And they said, now Yudhishthira, don't get upset. You must forget about the past. You must let everything go. Yudhishthira said, how can this be? This can't be heaven. I want to go to where my brothers and Draupadi are. I want to see them now. And they said, are you sure? He said, yes. And those people, those guardians of heaven, they take Yudhishthira to a place that's foul-smelling, stinking, dirty, polluted. There's corpses everywhere. There's rivers of blood. There's really crazy animals. It's noisy. It's heinous. It's weird. And Yudhishthira says, what is this place? And he cannot take the smell. It's just a really terrible smell. And he says, I don't think I can stay here. But while he was saying that, they said, Yudhishthira, please stay. Please stay. You are like a breath of fresh air. Don't go. He says, who's that? And they say, I'm Bhima. I'm Arjuna. I'm Draupadi. Yudhishthira says, what? How can they be here? How can they be here in this foul-smelling place? And Yudhishthira says, if I can give them a bit of fresh air in this foul-smelling, dirty, crazy place, I'll stay. It's okay. I'll stay here. And they said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I'll stay here. And they left Yudhishthira in this place. And those guardians went to Indra Devata. They told everything to him. And then they all came back to Yudhishthira. They all came back to Yudhishthira and they said, Yudhishthira, you have passed your third test. You've passed your third test, that you always put others before yourself, and you will be willing to suffer even for the case of other people. And therefore, with the blink of an eye, that whole place was transformed into a majestic heaven with bright flowers, a garden, a river, and everything was sweet smelling. The air was pure. And Yudhishthira said, "What was that?" He said, "You see, those who have done many, many sins in their lives, first they go to heaven a little bit for what little good they've done, then they spend a lot of time in the hellish realms. But those who've done little bit wrong, they have to spend some time in these hellish realms, and then eventually they spend most of their time in heaven. Yudhishthira, you are now in the heavenly realm." And they told him to take a bath in the river, and he assumes a celestial body. And he sees in this heavenly realm, he sees Karna with all sons. He sees Draupadi as Lakshmi. He sees Bhima as that Devata, the wind, and Arjuna with Indra, and Nakula Sahadeva with Ashwini Kumars. He sees the glory of all of those people who have fought for him in war. He sees Bhishma, he sees Drona, he sees everybody. And he now is resting in peace. And all of the Pandavas rest in that heavenly realm. And this is the story of Mahabharata. It is said that this story is a story of ages, thousands of years, and whoever recites and listens to the story becomes purified of even the most heinous acts that they've committed, because the story is about the rising over dharma over adharma. It is called Mahabharata because it is a story of Bharat, the great dynasty of Bharat. And it has many great secrets and divine revelations. And therefore it is said, whatever is in the Mahabharata is there in the world. But if it's not there in the Mahabharata, it cannot be found in the world. And the main message of this Mahabharata is, wherever there is Dharma, there is Lord Krishna. And wherever there is Lord Krishna, there will be victory. So may Bhagavan bless us to always be victorious, to always pick Dharma, no matter how hard, how difficult, how inconvenient it may be. May we always stick to Dharma so that we get the grace of Lord Krishna. And may we make the most out of our lives so that when it is time to go, we assume the greatest realms of peace and never to return again. So we won't say the end, we will say the beginning. Because in our culture, we never end the text, we always re-study. So we will just chant the prayer of Mahabharata together to assume that this is always going to be a study that we're going to keep in mind while we are doing the Gita. So, Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye.